How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, July 10, 2018. Figure4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. It is Tuesday here. We'll be talking about Raw in a moment, but we got a lot of news from the weekend, a lot of fallout to get into, and so we're going to kick it off with that. And I guess the first thing on everybody's mind, what is going on with Hiromu Takahashi?
There's not really anything conclusive that we, as far as like new news, other than he was, he's talking, he's able to sit up. There's been no official word on the nature of the injury. There have been guys who've heard stuff. I mean, it's the same, but it's essentially the same stuff that we've been hearing, since Sunday morning, as far as like the severity of the injury. So it's still kind of up in the air. As far as like how serious, what's next. It's obviously serious. One of the things that's kind of happened, and I mean there is something, that we really probably should talk about. I mean, like, so from what I gather, the injury came because when Dragon Lee was doing the move, his hand slipped, and by doing so, Takahashi fell at a horrible angle. So it was a botched spot, but it's a dangerous spot either way. But it's not like, it's not like a spot where they set out to drop somebody on their head. I mean, obviously, dropping people on their head is something that should just simply not be done. It's the long term of it is just a disaster. And obviously, we've talked about whether it's Hiromu Takahashi or several other guys. There's several guys who fit in this category. The style that they work, it's a high risk style. It's dangerous situation. It's probably in people's best interest to tone it down. At the same time, a botched spot is always going to be. There's always a danger in any single move on a botched spot. I mean, like, probably the single most famous broken neck in a match, which was Bruno Sammartino in 1976, came from a body slam. So, which is, considered by today's standards a completely safe move, but it.
Well, it was a safe move back then, but he basically got dropped and landed on his head. I mean, right. It wasn't something where Stan Hansen was trying to drop the guy on his head. It was like he went up and slipped and he fell down right on his head.
Right. But most of the time when you're, again, injuries happen at the weirdest times, and as we've talked about many times, so many of the most, devastating injuries have happened in situations where, they weren't necessarily dangerous moves. Sometimes, but that's not an argument to not real and dangerous moves. Obviously, I do think that we've gone. I mean, without a doubt, we've gone too far in the sense of certain guys. There need to be some restrictions as far as what to do, what type of things should be allowed, and just basically to take care of yourself and take care of your opponent and protect your neck. I mean, that's just really basic stuff. And I think that sometimes guys are young and they can do stuff, and it's usually going to be. The reality is, when it comes to this stuff, it's going to be two types of guys that are going to do this, and these are the guys who usually end up being the best guys because they're the guys with the most drive, determination to be at the top, to impress people. They're the ones who are going to, be like that. The guys who have less drive and just kind of want to be wrestlers, and in a lot of ways, it's better off for you to be one of those guys rather than want to be the guy who's got their mind that I'm going to be the best of all time, because that mentality is follow the Dynamite Kid lead or Misawa lead or whatever, which unfortunately, and those guys were, some of the greatest ever. And Misawa actually had a long, long career, but the end result was, was a bad situation. And there is something, I mean, what's happened now, I mean, it's kind of like brought in a lot of discussions of, the the different situations, and New Japan has had a couple of really bad situations with in the last couple of years with Honma Shibata and now Hiromu Takahashi, and there have been other injuries. Of course, everyone's had serious injuries, and every company is going to have them. But in the case of Shibata, the thing, we know what happened with him. He did something really stupid. It was a full-on headbutt. He'd done it before, but it's something that absolutely should never be done. I mean, that should just be, that type of a headbutt should be completely banned. I don't care where. We know too much. He could, he'd done it, survived, split people open before. It made for a real devastating look, very memorable. But that kind of stuff, there was no business to that ever happening. Okay, the Honma, injury. Obviously, we've talked about this before. This was on a completely safe move. It was a draping DDT that Randy Orton does in every single match. But without a doubt, it was probably years of crazy moves. In particular, that diving headbutt to the top rope, from the top rope to the floor. I can't say that's probably that's what led to it. I can kind of surmise that things like that. There's the falling headbutts and all that, and diving headbutts, but that top rope diving headbutt to the floor that he did several times probably didn't do him any favors. So I know that there's been a lot of concern over the years about the diving headbutt. I know Harley Race popularized it, and with the benefit of hindsight, he has said that he wished he never did. Benoit did it. Obviously he had terrible neck problems later in life. Danielson did it. He's had neck problems. Liger did it, but it hasn't done it for years and years and years. Snuka did it, and whatever. Who knows if he had neck problems? But it's not, that move is actually not that popular anymore. So I guess that's a good thing. But as far as it was even a Phoenix Plex done right is kind of a devastating move, but. It's just an unfortunate thing, but hopefully there is a wake up call as far as like the stuff that we talked about last week with Naito taking that German suplex on his head in the show in Daytona Beach. He did it. He said he was fine, but in the long run, is something like that done regularly going to do him a lot of good? And it's probably not the case. I mean, it was a cool move, but you can do that same cool power bomb into a German suplex and take it like any other German suplex, as opposed to let's do a high angle and really shock people. That's what the All Japan guys did, and again, people look at that as this incredible era of wrestling, and it was. But the body toll on those guys was really bad. I mean, if you look at the, Kobashi had a short career. Kawada had not short, but shorter than it could have been. Misawa died. Kawada, his career was, he did have a long career. I mean, it's like, yeah, when he was in his 40s, he wasn't a big star. But, a lot of guys are done in their 40s, so that's probably not fair. But, I remember Steve Williams declined physically from all those, high angle stuff that he did. It's just, they really do need to tone down on neck bumps. I mean, the other thing.
Well, I think one thing I want to say about the neck bumps too is we talked about this on Sunday with Misawa and other guys as well. I mean, if you take care of yourself, if you don't land on your head regularly, then when something goes wrong, and if you have any sort of a lengthy career, I mean, something's going to go wrong at some point. When something goes wrong, you may be okay. When you land on your head a lot and you do that damage, then when something goes wrong, that could be the end. Exactly like what happened with Hanma. I mean, if Hanma had not had all of the neck trauma from doing the things that he did, he would have been fine when he took that draping DDT. And it didn't even go wrong.
Most likely.
Yeah, most likely. Something is inevitably going to go wrong, and you're better off taking care of yourself and hopefully being able to avoid problems when something does go wrong.
Right. You never. There's always going to be stuff in this business. You know what I mean? There's going to be tragic injuries. It's just the nature of the business. But the idea is there's the ones that are going to happen just because they're going to happen. You know, like with somebody's going to slip, drop you wrong. You know, whether it wrenches your shoulder, whether it wrenches your back, whether it wrenches your neck. You know, these things are going to happen in a physical game. But the idea should be to, you know, when it comes to the things that, I guess it should be to make it as safe as possible, and don't be tempting fate.
Don't roll the dice every big show.
Yeah, but look, you can roll the dice in the sense of you can go out there and do really fast matches and things like that.
Yeah, but that's not rolling the dice. I'm talking about don't land on your head
and
roll the dice.
Yep. I think that you should always avoid landing right on the top of your head. Yeah. I think that should be a rule of, you know, throughout every single company, that, you know, to basically tell wrestlers this is not acceptable. Because, again, you don't need to tempt that fate. And you can have great matches without it. And, all of these guys that we've talked about, whether it's, you know, Will Ospreay, who's, you know, having great matches every night, even, you know, right now, Hiromu, who was one of the greatest wrestlers in the world, and whether whoever it is that's doing this stuff that we talk about, those guys, you could take that stuff out of their repertoire, and it's one pop or two in a match that's already a great match. We're not telling people not to have great matches or to have any less great matches. If anything, I'll tell you what, again, it's hard because, the Dragon Lee Hiromu match was a fantastic match. And I know a lot of people felt very uncomfortable watching the last 2 minutes of the match, even if they'd seen it live, because when they saw that spot, they presumed that he could be hurt really, really bad, and it took him out of the last couple of minutes. If that spot didn't happen and everything else in the match happened the way it did, people would be talking about it like this classic match. And what was the match? I think was it the Hiromu and Ishimori match? I think it was. That where, I just thought that was one of the greatest junior heavyweight matches I've ever seen. Yet there were still two or three things that I thought, like, I don't want to say it made the match worse, because that's not really fair to say, but it made the match less entertaining because it took me, there's this element, you do want to take people into this realm of believing it. That is a positive in the match, but I think you don't, especially with a modern fan, I think you don't want to take them in the realm where they believe, that's a weird one, because the Will Ospreay match with Matt Riddle that we saw in New Orleans, they took everyone in the realm of thinking, oh my God, he broke his neck in that match, and it was a work to get a certain emotion that led to that match actually being fantastic. So, in a sense, I can't say that that you take people into that level where they think you're really hurt and it actually hurts the match, because they worked you into that and it didn't hurt the match. It actually accentuated the match. Unfortunately, I say that, but I'm trying to be, but that is real, because I saw it live and I did see the crowd reaction and everything when, they did that crazy spot and he was fine, but they were working a unique match, and it was really one of the more unique great matches of the year. So I don't know, but
the other thing too that I want to mention is the now famous taking a bump on the ring apron, and the constant reminder.
We see that constantly on every show. I saw it tonight on Raw.
I know, but here's my point. There never was any reason to make it a part of the story of pro wrestling that the apron is the hardest part of the ring. Like, it should be that every part of the ring is hard. Like, it should be that if you land anywhere, if you take a bump anywhere, it hurts really bad. Now, I don't even know why this whole thing began, but now it's a thing where, well, if you really want to hurt a guy with a move, it's got to be on the ring apron. Now there's like the idea that we've told the fans that bumping in the middle of the ring, it doesn't hurt that bad, but it's the ring apron where it really hurts. And the reality is that is the hardest part of the ring. So we've created this thing now in 2018 where you've explained to the people that just taking a bump in the middle of the ring isn't that bad. That should never have happened. There should never have been a deal where, like the next logical step will be, well, now we're going to tell the people that when you go through a table, the table breaks your fall. So we're going to start bumping on tables that don't break, because you're going to tell the fans that, when the table breaks, it doesn't hurt so bad. So now we're going to take these bumps on these hard tables that don't break. This is not the direction that wrestling needs to go. It's supposed to be a performance art, and the fans will buy whatever you sell them. And if you can sell them that bumping anywhere in that ring is painful, and hey, you know what? If you take a suplex off the middle rope or off the top rope, it's even worse because you went from way up high. That's the kind of stories that need to be told. You don't need to bring the fans into this place where the wrestlers know, landing on your head is bad, so we're going to land on our head. Landing on the apron hurts worse, we're going to start landing on the apron. You don't need to go there.
Yeah, the thing is, the apron has become like that's such
now
a
everybody
part
has to do it.
Yeah, it's weird because you don't even have to go back that many years. I think I'm trying to remember when, I think it wasn't again. I'm not really familiar with when the apron bump started, because I think that they really started when I started seeing it. It was on independent shows before it got to the major league level, and those guys were probably doing it at independent shows before I was following the independent shows. And then some of those guys that did it graduated to a higher level independent level. So I'm not sure exactly who where it got popularized. But again, 15 years ago or 10 years ago, maybe 10 years ago they started doing it, but I don't really recall it. I certainly don't recall it growing up. There were bumps on the apron at times, but they were rare, and you weren't told that it was the hardest part of the ring. I do remember occasional bumps on the apron with the idea that because the bump is on the apron and you fall off the apron to the floor and you had just taken a bump like a back suplex on the apron, that it was a reason to get counted out, so it's a finish. I do remember seeing that a couple times in Japan. But, again, it's something to lead to a finish without a pinfall, but it's still a finish as opposed to, like a fluke count out that doesn't mean shit. It's like a win, but you didn't get pinned, so it kind of, it can build to a return type of a thing, which is what wrestling used to be built on, is, building returns and things like that, having excuses for a loss, bringing the match back. So I do recall things like that, but this thing of just, for a heat spot, but again, I'm not the one to talk about apron bumps. You can do that better. I know Lance Storm just, who's been pretty adamant about this, and for all the right reasons. He's a trainer. He's lived through it. He's in his late 40s. He did not work stupidly, but he also was feeling all the pain and can probably look at this. He did work a hard style, and he can probably look at this and look at what these guys are doing, which is far more dangerous and far harder than what he did, and kind of like, man, I don't want these guys. I'm dreading what these guys are like when they're 50 or 60. You got a whole life ahead of you. It's like, and you're, when you get older and you've done a lot of physical stuff. And there's going to be guys. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule, because it's like look at Liger, just an example. He's a perfect example of this. Liger's 53 years old. He did
but we can't be looking at the exceptions.
No, but the point is, there's always going to be someone. I remember when Lismark was another one. Lismark when he was doing all the high flying, which obviously is nothing compared to what guys do now, but he was the first generation high flyer, and it was like, oh my God, not first generation, but he was kind of a pioneer in the transition of the business. And it's like, oh my God, look at him, he's not going to be able to last. And he was still good into his 50s. He did decline in his 50s, but who doesn't, right? So there's going to be guys. There's going to be guys who are exceptions. And there's going to be guys who wrestle a safe style who are going to be done in their 20s. It's a lot. There's no telling of what's going to happen. And there's no guarantees, but I guess the idea is to don't. but don't tempt fate. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of flying moves that you can do that are spectacular, and if you do them at the right time, if you overdo them, if you do them at the wrong time, they don't necessarily mean something. If you do them at the right time, they add greatly to a match. But I mean, there's still going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, there's still a risk. I mean, look at Hayabusa. Hayabusa did a move that he probably did in every single match, that Chris Jericho has done in every single match, and never thought twice, because I've talked to Jericho about this. He never thought twice about, that move, even though what happened to Hayabusa, who, ended up paralyzed and then died very young. It's just, and again, that quebrada has been done for years and years and years and years and years, and moonsaults have been done for years and years and years and years, yet, shooting star presses have been done for years and years. Brock Lesnar nearly killed himself on a shooting star press. Tenzan nearly killed himself on a moonsault. Stuff like that happens. So it's like we're always going to have these injuries, and again, it was. There have been, like, Takahashi himself has done things that are theoretically more dangerous than what was supposed to happen there. Not than what happened there. What happened there was, it was somebody slipped and it was a disaster. But, I don't know. It's sad because, and a lot of people have talked about this in the last couple of days, because it's sad when this happens to anyone. But I guess because, number one, it was on national TV. Number two was Hiromu Takahashi, who's been one of the best wrestlers in the world of late, and also someone who you and I have talked about on more than one occasion has been tempting fate. So it's almost like all those risks, this is what happened. And perhaps that's not fair, in the sense of perhaps it was just this one fluke. Now, with that move, the way that thing looked, I'm not sure if he had wrestled a safer style and never done drop kicks to the floor and never done drop kicks on the concrete like he's done in recent weeks. I don't know that would have saved his neck any if he had taken this bump. As far as, ban that move, I don't know. I mean, because again, it's like somebody's coming and going, these type of moves, even if you have 1% risk, you should ban them. It's like, look, then you got to ban the body slam, you got to ban the quebrada, you got to ban the moonsault, you got to ban the shooting star, you've got to ban, there's so many things you have to ban if you ban something that has, in the worst case scenario, risk, because everything does. Crisscrossing the ropes does if you trip, you know what I mean? Or if you're, if a muscle goes out when you're doing something and you just collapse and land wrong. I mean, this is a potentially dangerous business, but there has to be it has gone too far. It really has, and maybe this should be like a wake up call for a lot of these guys that because it's always frustrating to me, because so many of the times people will go so many of the times when I see this stuff, it's in matches that are already great and matches that don't need it to be great because the guys are so talented. But it's the guys, it's that whole mentality of why those guys are so talented, the drive that makes them so talented, and the drive that makes them want to have these great matches is also going to lead to those same guys taking risks that if they slip can be disastrous.
All right, Jim Ross.
So I guess that was a complete shoot. I mean,
you know what's funny about it is, the moment it happened, I turned to you and I said, I think that might have been real. And then, it was probably 30 seconds later on the Access Twitter feed, they already had clips of it. And so we were like, well, there's no way it could be real. And then Jay White's out there taunting Josh Barnett, which, let me tell you something. If you legitimately make Josh Barnett mad, don't be out there taunting the guy. So we thought, well, there's no way this can be real, because why would Jay White be taunting this guy if he accidentally knocked over...
He was totally playing to it.
Yeah, but he knocked Jim Ross on his ass, and he's taunting Josh Barnett. And anyway, my very first thought was it was real, but then I very quickly thought, there's no way this can be real. It just doesn't make any sense. Then we find out it was.
Okay, when Ross took that bump, backwards off of his chair, I immediately thought that had to be real, because in my mind, there's no way that Jim Ross is agreeing to do that. But when you told me they already put it up on Twitter, it's like, oh, it's got to be an angle, right? And with Josh running around and Jay White completely acting like it was a work, with his reactions, when something weird happens, one of the things I thought, if Jim Ross was hurt, Josh Barnett's going to check on how Jim Ross is doing. He's not going to hop the guardrail. But you never know how someone's going to react in that situation. Because again, I think that Josh Barnett, it's being who he is, I think that there's that mentality that you protect your broadcast partner. But I would think that it would be like, check on your broadcast partner, not hop the rail and go after, especially because he was out there for a long time, long enough to where I thought this has to be a work, right? But anyway, I mean, the point of it, this is kind of a weird situation, because Jim went to the hospital today. He believes he has a broken rib. I don't know that he does, but his symptoms. I think that there's a rib and perhaps even a lung issue. He could get pneumonia, but he's hurt pretty bad. He's going to be. I know he said that he was going to have to cancel some dates. That he was going to go, and he's in excruciating pain. So that's it's not a good thing. And he I think he's also really mad because again, there's a lot of things. Number one, those barricades that they used, they knocked over a bunch of barricades before they ever got, which is another thing why I would think it was a work, because it was like they were setting it up. It seemed like, especially when I watched back. I mean, but like the barricades, if you're going to whip a guy in the barricades, whether it was Jim Ross or whatever, I mean, those things going flying could hurt fans. I mean, it was almost like, in that match, doing that was tempting fate too, because it could have hit a lot of people, especially the first time. Once you've done a barricade spot and you've knocked over the barricade and it's gone flying, I don't know that you need to keep doing it, but they did. And again, I don't know how much to criticize that match, because the fact is that those two guys were put in absolute death spot, and they ended up having the match of the night in most people's eyes, and had the match. In the case of both guys, they had the match of their careers. Both men. It was not only the greatest match of their careers, which doesn't justify that one spot, but very few times do you see a match where somebody's career takes a jump. You know what I mean? Like where you're a guy who's you're a guy and you're good, and now all of a sudden everyone's talking about you like you're really something. In one match. I mean, it happens, and I think it happened with both of those guys. I mean, the whole, Jay White became, incredible heel performance, and, Juice came off looking like a freaking superstar. So it's like, I guess time will tell, but I wonder what's going to happen. Again, I cannot comment on the announcing. I know that there's been a lot, there's always a lot of people when it comes to the announcing on the New Japan, and I'll watch it and I'll go, it's not that bad, and in some cases really good. Now, on this show, I have not watched, I probably watched, 3 minutes tops of the whole thing, and I probably, just because of a lot of things going on, and I've got, several, just terrible timing issues, and, this issue is going to be, one of the most difficult ones for me to finish for a lot of reasons that have happened, but I doubt, I really do want to watch the Omega and Cody match, because that's the one I was told that I need to watch, but that's 40 minutes, and I don't know that I'm going to get a chance to do it. And the only thing that I watched, as far as the broadcast goes, was that spot that we talked about with Jim Ross, the spot that we talked about with Hiromu. I did watch the last 2 minutes of the Young Bucks match, and the beatdown, at the end of the show with the Tongans and Bullet Club. So I can't really talk about the announcing fairly right now, but apparently after that spot, there's a lot of people that were upset about that, and maybe it took, or probably did take Ross out of his game for a lot of reasons and got him furious. And I don't know. I'll have to watch, but it's a weird thing because obviously he's mad at New Japan. I don't know what that means for the future of that. I don't know what, for Barnett as well. I mean, in the sense of he got in the middle of a match that was not a scripted thing. Man, I don't know. There's a lot of things that have to be addressed on this show. As great a show as it was and all that, there's things that need to be addressed.
Ric Flair also had surgery.
Ric Flair had surgery this morning. Went well. I'm sure he's really happy. I had talked to him a couple weeks ago, a couple times actually, and this was he wants to be. There's stuff he wants to do. I mean, we were talking. It was mostly about training, and he was very limited in his training because he had a colostomy bag with him, and also I know it was very difficult traveling. So he really wanted this surgery, and I guess this is probably the earliest he could get it done. But he was excited about the surgery, but it was not a simple surgery. I mean, there could have been complications and everything like that. I mean, it was a serious deal, but he got through it fine. I'm beginning to think that he can get through almost anything. It's probably not the case, but he's definitely when you really think about it, that thing that he had last year. I mean, he was very, very lucky to get through it, and I mean, it's kind of amazing how quickly he bounced back from it. I mean, from legitimately, the percentages. I mean, if you really look at the percentages of everything, it was about a 5% chance to live that week, and because it was 20% chance of surviving, or 20% chance of making it to surgery, and 20% chance of surviving the surgery when it happened. So 20% of 20% is 5%, I think. Yeah.
4%.
No, 4%. So 4%, yes. But he's doing well, and he should be back on the road doing stuff. I'm not sure exactly how soon, but soon enough, and finally can go. He'll be very happy being able to go back to the gym and being able to lift weights. At almost 70 years old, close to the level that he would like to be able to do, because I know he's been frustrated with his training. Again, this guy who probably started training, I don't know, when he was 18, 17, 16, done it his whole life. It's just part of that life of his, and it was, it's frustrating. I mean, at some point, you can't do it forever. I mean, that's just the reality, and being able to train at all, a lot of people can't even train at all, especially all the stuff. Talk about a guy who's been through bumps. I mean, who took more bumps? Who took more big bumps than Ric Flair? Even though he never landed on his head. Even though he broke his neck once too.
We got the update on Lesnar. He is officially in the USADA pool as of yesterday, and so January 9.
He actually was in as of Tuesday, but it's 1 year. But what we didn't know is that, remember when he retired, he had a 1 year suspension.
What do you mean Tuesday? Like today?
No, last Tuesday.
Oh, last Tuesday.
Yeah. He actually entered the pool on the 3rd, so he entered the pool before he did that angle. He didn't do it on the 30th, so he actually he would have had to do it on the 26th to make the December 29th show, I think it is, because he had 6 months and 4. He needs 6 months of clean tests to be eligible to fight, but he had a 1 year suspension, and when he retired and went out of the pool, he had 6 months and 4 days left of the suspension, so it's actually 6 months and 4 days. But the point of all this is that he can fight Cormier on the January pay-per-view, not on the December pay-per-view. January's the earliest. I can't imagine they won't do it. I'll tell you what I found very interesting is that there was not a mention of Brock Lesnar on Raw at all. Now, that tells me that there is something up. And I don't know what it is. I'm going to try to find out. But you know, like, one would think that they would be, you know, Lesnar did something that, Lesnar is one of their guys. He's their Universal Champion, okay? And he just did something that got national attention, you know, far more attention than anything he's done in wrestling. Far more attention than Ronda Rousey going into the Hall of Fame got, for that matter, which they did cover. But they, to the point that Roman Reigns did an interview the interview they did late in the show, where he was talking about beating Bobby Lashley and then going on, and the natural next word is, I'm going to take Brock Lesnar's championship, and he did not say it. So I don't know something's changed in the last week. Clearly WWE is not happy about it, because if they were happy about it, they'd be talking about it, and quite frankly, if it was the angle that they are booking, if you think about it, the angle they're booking, what Lesnar did accentuates that angle. It tells everyone, hey, he's more concerned about doing UFC and he's going to leave us, you know, that leave us thing. So we need to get behind Roman Reigns and get this guy who doesn't really like us wrestling fans and doesn't, you know, he's not loyal to our wrestling cause and all that stuff. I mean, that was perfect for their storyline, but they didn't even tell you that they did it. So something's up.
What's up with Jones and Cormier?
Well, the two Cormier broke his hand in the fight, broke a knuckle. But you know, again, if his next fight, he talked today about perhaps fighting at light heavyweight and defending that title once before the Lesnar fight. But I think to me, that's a bad idea. Number one, that would be, you'd have to rush into it. I mean, I think his mentality is if I fight in November, you know, the fact that, okay, they don't have to do Lesnar in January, they can always do Lesnar and me in March, and then Lesnar could be his retirement fight. But if he fights, you know, there's a moving part here in Jon Jones, and God only knows what's going to happen with Jon Jones and everything like that. So Malky Kawa was on with Ariel Helwani on his show today, and that's Malky Kawa is Jon Jones' manager. And he said that he believes that the USADA thing will be settled by the end of this month. Of course, I've heard that before, and we're only like, whatever it is, you know, a year in.
A year.
What?
1 year.
1 year, yeah. But anyway, it'll be settled, and of course he's going to say what he's going to say, that you know, since John did not knowingly take it, yes, he had it in his system, he should be suspended, but it shouldn't be a long suspension because he didn't knowingly take it. But you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, you personally know with Tom Lawler and everything like this, as far as these suspensions. I mean, I think a lot. You know, the idea that if he doesn't get, you know, significantly more than Tom Lawler, which was a trace amount of a SARM, you know what I mean? For a second offense of steroids, you know what I mean? That you would get less. I mean, that's just going to be, you know, for a trace amount. I mean, it's just like, that's just ludicrous. But everything about this Jon Jones thing has been very, very suspicious. But anyway, if Jon Jones is, let's say Jon Jones is cleared to fight. I mean, you know, Brock Lesnar probably, you know, the thing that got him the most intrigued about coming back was fighting Jon Jones, not Daniel Cormier. But it's making money. And I think in his mind, I mean, he's going to want the fight that makes the most money. What do you think? I mean, do you think a non-championship fight with Jon Jones or a championship fight with Daniel Cormier, which makes the most money? Because I'm not sure. I'm still tempted to say the Jon Jones
I mean,
fight,
before Saturday, it was obviously Jon Jones, but
I'm not as sure now, though.
That Saturday thing was so good, and the promo that Cormier cut was so good, and Lesnar was so good, and Cormier is going to be so awesome in the build-up, and Lesnar is going to be so great in the build-up. You know, I don't know. I think that I mean, I know the Cormier fight's going to do very well. I mean,
well, both fights will do well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to do better than the Jones fight would have done. I mean, Jon Jones is still like a big time big-time name. But, I mean, after Saturday, it's a hell of a lot closer than it was before Saturday.
It's closer. Yeah, it's closer. The thing is with Cormier, I sense that Cormier really came out of that as this very likable, you know what I mean?
Super babyface.
Yeah, which Jon Jones isn't.
No.
And it's probably better to have a super babyface again. You know, but, you know, I mean, Cormier, I mean, they're pushing the narrative that Cormier may be the greatest of all time, and I actually just finished writing a story where I actually discussed that, and while I will not say that I don't think that Daniel Cormier should be called the greatest of all time, if you go with the idea that if you're a drug test failure or multiple drug test failure, you're out, which eliminates Jon Jones and eliminates Anderson Silva, I mean, you really got, you know, in my mind, you got Daniel Cormier, Demetrius Johnson, George St. Pierre, and Fedor as the guys that I would go and say greatest of all time based on longevity. I think that George is probably the greatest of all time. Maybe that's a bias, because when I look at the records, it's like, you know, Daniel really only did lose one fight in his career based on his record, which was to Jon Jones. George lost twice. He lost to Matt Using, lost to Matt Serra. I mean, I just remember all those years of George being this frickin' dominating guy who would, you know, even though sometimes the fights weren't that good, he just had this. Whereas Cormier to me was always a guy who, like, won fights. I mean, he won a lot of fights pretty clean, and he beat some guys that I didn't think he could beat. Actually, several guys. But it always also seemed that he was kind of like this guy who would win just because he has more will than the other guy. You know, as opposed to George, who just seemed like he was so superior to everybody. You know what I mean? He'd beat these wrestlers at wrestling. He destroyed these wrestlers at wrestling, like we shouldn't be able to do. Then again, Daniel did pretty well striking with strikers. I don't know. I had that feeling. Like Demetrius Johnson is like this perfect fighter and everything like that, but he hasn't fought the level, you know, because of the division. He hasn't fought the level of competition that either of those two guys have in my mind. But you know, I mean, his record, you know, you can only beat who's put in front of you, and he's beaten everybody, and he's been completely dominant. You know, Fedor had a long period of domination, but and again, like, yeah, the fighters are way better now, but he did fight the guys. You know what I mean? It's like if that Fedor were to fight Daniel Cormier, you know, both in their primes, Daniel Cormier would destroy Fedor. I know some people are going to get really pissed about that, but there's not even a doubt in my mind, because the fighters now are so much better. You know, Fedor was doing that Siberian training, or I know it's not Siberia, but that Russian, you know, you've ever seen the videos of his training. You compare that training to the ATT training or AKA training and all that. It's worlds different. And you know, Fedor and you know, Fedor's only 2 years older than Daniel, I think. And, you know, he's been nothing significant for years and years and years, and look at Cormier. If you factor in Cormier's age and the fact that he started at 30 and then he did what he did, I do think that that's more impressive than anything George or Demetrius Johnson ever did. So I will say that, but I don't know that I can call him the greatest of all time. But it is an interesting discussion that a lot of people have been having. And by that, it's like you have the greatest or one of the greatest fighters of all time, who's a legitimate world champion, going against Brock, who's so much bigger and so strong, and you have that physical thing, and Brock's got the name. I mean, I do see that as a big-time fight. But, you know, like I said, Brock's going to want to fight. If Jon Jones is eligible to fight, Brock's going to want to fight the guy who is going to make him the most money, and it probably still is Jon. But again, it's now an argument, whereas before it wasn't even an argument.
All right, one more news note before Raw. Flip Gordon is getting his NWA Heavyweight Championship match.
Did you book that?
I got to say something about this. I did not book this. To the best of my knowledge, that this has been an idea for a long time. But the thing to me was, it wasn't like I made it up out of thin air. I looked at everything that they had been doing. It's the most logical scenario based on everything that they have done in this storyline for like 4 or 5 months now. The most logical storyline is Flip needs to win the NWA title. So Cody, in order to fight for the NWA, his father's championship, he's got to book Flip for All In. It makes everything fit together like a puzzle. And I'm really happy that I mentioned the idea on a show, and they're still going with it.
Well, what I could say is that when you mentioned that idea to me, I thought it was like a really great idea. It made so much sense. I'm still not sure he's going to win, though. I mean,
he may not win.
What?
He may not win, but
yeah, it's on the 20. But I will say it does make for an intriguing fight, and like that. The house show in Nashville on the 20th is on Honor Club, and I will probably be watching that house show.
Yeah,
just because I would kind of want. I'm curious about that result. I mean, they've done a lot of promotion of Nick Aldis, so much so that I want to think that that's still the match they're going to go with. But if they do go in the other direction,
but Nick Aldis can do something else on the show. Nick Aldis can be in a big time match where the winner faces the winner of Cody and Flip Gordon. I mean, you could easily do that match. I mean,
absolutely.
Realistically, I mean, nothing against Nick Aldis, but among the pro wrestling fans that follow independent wrestling and Bullet Club and everything like that, and all the Being the Elite and everything, Flip Gordon is a bigger name than Nick Aldis. And if the NWA wants to do something and get the title on the guy who people are going to talk about, it's going to be a big time storyline in independent pro wrestling. Flip's the guy.
Well, it doesn't matter, because if you want to do that, Cody's the guy.
Well, sure, he can win it from Flip.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if he wins it from Aldis or he wins it from Flip. It's either way is fine if that's the way they're going. And I don't know what it is, but I don't know what isn't. I mean, if I'm Billy Corgan, and you're looking for Matt, and again, I'm sure Corgan is in the middle of doing a million different things. I don't know if any of them are going to come to fruition. I mean, I know, like he's definitely got his ideas that he wants to accomplish, and Cody is under contract to Ring of Honor, and it's it's an exclusive North American contract. At the same time, I think doors are being opened more and more, and I hope they are. I really think it's better. The one thing that I've seen, and it was really the Mexican thing that kind of opened my eyes, even though the Mexican thing is still kind of weird, and CML isn't nearly as open. I mean, they're more open than they were before, but they're still not as open as I wish they would be. But I would like to see, and we are seeing a little bit of that, like on the Jericho Cruise and everything. Before, if it was a different time, you've got Ring of Honor guys and Impact guys. They're both going to be on the cruise. And if it was another time, there would probably be one or both of those companies that go, we've got to pick us or them. We're not going to let our talent go on a cruise with Ring of Honor guys, or vice versa. Or now, I think they announced Sami Callihan and Marty Scurll, with the idea of pushing it as Impact versus Ring of Honor. And, those, again, there would have been a time where, you can't have, these two contracted guys, who's going to do the job, blah, 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 blah. I think that everyone's kind of seeing that trying to get all territorial in this day and age is, it's ridiculous. I mean, everyone, Ring of Honor and Impact are not, I mean, they can be enemies, but they have no business being enemies, because they're both fighting for the same thing. They're both fighting to survive against, somebody who's going to hammer them on the head every time they get past a certain level of popularity. And they both have guys under contract, but using talent from the other side in both cases will give you fresh new matches, and that's what you need. You need new matches out there to keep this thing going. So I'm hopeful, and we're seeing, we're certainly seeing more Lucha Underground guys are allowed to work outside of Lucha Underground on television, which for a long time they couldn't do. I think that it's really healthy for the business that you're able to provide these new matchups with guys from different companies. I think it just makes everything more intriguing. So I'm just hoping that, again, the point being that Cody's under exclusive with Ring of Honor, but the idea that know, I mean, Cody's not going to be able to do what Nick Aldis did and work these independents and everything like that, and I don't think that they should allow that, but the idea of allowing him to be NWA champion and working some dates, enough dates, here and there, defending the title on Ring of Honor, which to me is good for the NWA championship to be defended on Ring of Honor, because it's more high profile, and perhaps Cody can wrestle here and there on a few shows here and there. I mean, again, they really don't want their guys doing, because they don't want guys getting hurt on other shows. I do, to a degree, understand where they're coming from with with their exclusive North American deals. So there's a lot of different ways it can go, but and I don't know that Cody's winning the championship either. But I think that for the most exposure of that championship, because Cody's so high profile right now, that if I'm Corgan and I'm in this position and I want to elevate that championship, he's the guy I would want it on if I can get some dates and enough video. And the Cody Rhodes videos that are coming out every week are produced by Lightning One, which is Corgan's company. So there is already, a Ring of Honor contracted guy is doing videos produced by the NWA and David Lagana. So, there is that working together is already there, and All In is not a Ring of Honor show, but it is Ring of Honor is certainly heavily involved in the show, and the NWA Championship is on the show as well. So,
all right, sorry about that, everybody. We lost Dave, but he's back here. And we are going to jump into Raw while we still have time here on the show. Dave, what did you think of the show?
I liked it. You know what? I feel that the Roman Reigns-Bobby Lashley thing, it's a new matchup, which we haven't seen before, and I think both guys are doing a great job. I think that it's one of those things where it's like, first of all, the first segment was great. It's the typical WWE pull-apart brawl. We've seen it a bunch of times. I don't know why it is, but WWE does the pull-apart brawl better than anyone. I don't know if it's the way they shoot it. They're always the same. It's always all kinds of job guys are out there. They always break free. You know when they're going to break free. But it always seems to, I don't say it always seems to work, but it almost always seems to work, and I felt this one worked. I just felt like, it's Bobby Lashley's got real presence, especially, what is, when they do the close-up shots on Bobby Lashley, and it's the physique. You look at him and it's just like, God damn, it's like he's an impressive-looking guy, and, him and Roman Reigns, it feels like a major league matchup, and, and they were the theme of the show, so, yeah, it's very rare when WWE gets I shouldn't say very rare, but like they got this match, to me watching it. Like there's times in WWE where, like, and even like with Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler, it's like I'm really interested in that match because it's going to be a 30-minute match. They're going 30, and it's going to be a hell of a match because both those guys are going to just they're going to be sitting there trying to put on a match of the year. So it's going to be really good, and that's cool. Or when even though the AJ Nakamura matches were disappointing, it was like I was definitely looking forward to those matches when they happened. And there's a lot of matches where it's like the pay-per-view week I'm looking forward to, but it's like this match would be one that I would look at and go, it's cool, it's fine, but I'm not like really looking forward to it. But they have sold me. They've really done a good job, both those guys, on interviews, and they're not even like, I don't even know that they're like great interviews, but I think there's just something about, I don't know, it worked. So that was like, to me, the key to the show, and the third hour didn't drag to me because you had that Drew McIntyre and Rollins match, which was a real long match, and it was good, and so yeah, overall I liked the show.
Roman's walking around backstage, runs into Lashley's lats. Lashley wants to know where he's going. Roman says, I'm going to the ring. And Lashley says, well, why don't you go out there and call me out? I've been waiting all day for you to call me out, and go out there and do it, and I'm going to tear you apart.
Didn't you like that?
He was awesome. Lashley's been great.
Yeah,
another good thing about him, too, is that he's always smiling. So when all of a sudden he's not smiling, you know that shit's going down. And he's got a great angry face when he finally stops smiling. He's got a great look. He's got good delivery of his lines. You believe he's a badass. I like him.
He projects. It's funny because when he first came in, he wasn't getting over the way that people hoped that he would.
Because they weren't doing anything with him.
Well, he had a feud with Sami Zayn that was atrocious. But this feud is good. I think they project that they don't like each other, even though neither guy's playing babyface or heel. Obviously, Bobby Lashley is going to be the babyface in the feud to the fans, but Roman Reigns isn't like playing heel. And I think that even helps it. But yeah, I just like the way that they both did what a babyface would do. You know what I mean? Bobby Lashley was a badass, just call me out. And Roman's not backing down, and the first thing he does, I'm calling you out. So it's just kind of like these two badasses that are out there, and you know the idea. You knew that Kurt was going to send people in to break it up, so it was exactly what you expect. But they did break free a bunch of times, and then it ended with that spot where first you think that Bobby's getting the better of him in some of the spots, and he got that one when it was a clothesline him, but he decked him that one time. So it's kind of like he got the better of him, but then Roman comes back and does that big dive onto everybody, which was a great finish to the whole scenario. So yeah, I thought the beginning of the show was just great.
So Roman comes out, calls him out. Kurt sends out all the B-Team geeks and Finn Balor, and as noted, they
Bobby Roode too. Bobby Roode and Authors of Pain too, but it was mostly. Yeah, it was mostly. I thought it was interesting because it was mostly lower level guys, but we did get those Authors of Pain, I was surprised ran in there. Although, I was. And then, but Balor especially, because Bobby Roode kind of is a mid-card guy right now. But Balor, even though, Balor is kind of like really closer to a top guy. And it's not like they sent out Elias. You know what I mean? I think Corbin was out there too, wasn't he?
I mean, he was out there with Kurt, so... They keep breaking free, they keep breaking free, they keep breaking free. Finally, Undertaker-style dive by Roman over the top rope to the outside. So, they've been brawling for like 3 minutes, and finally they play Roman's music after the big dive. You think it's over, but instead of it being over, Roman breaks free one more time, running big dive onto the pile. It was a very good segment, very good pull apart. Roman actually got some big pops for some of this stuff here, and... I mean, it shouldn't be surprised wild, crazy, scary badasses get over. And they're doing it with two guys, and the segments are getting over. So it's very successful first segment.
You know what? Also, I think a big key to this, we always knock the scripting of the promos, as we should. These guys, they scripted good promos.
Well, yeah, but they were good promos, but they were also short. They're not out there talking for 15 minutes.
No shit. That's the key.
Yes, it's not hard to cut a good promo when you're given like 2 lines. I mean, you're out there having to go for 20 minutes, and there aren't a lot of guys that can pull that off.
But both sides, it's funny because Lashley is not known as a great promo, although his promos were so much better in Impact. But they were believable in their promo, which is all that matters. And Roman Reigns was believable in his promo. And he didn't say he said what Roman Reigns should say in that scenario as opposed to these scripted soliloquies that, you just go like, what are they talking about? This does not fit consistently with the character.
We had Alexa and Mickey laughing backstage about the next match. It was Alexa and Mickey versus Nia and Natalya. They got the heat on Natalya. Nia got a hot tag. Crowd was super into Nia Jax. Hit a few spots, big leg drop, pinned Mickey. And the match was secondary to the angle, which was Alexa grabbing a kendo stick, beating the hell out of Natty and Nia. And they're having an Extreme Rules match, so Nia grabs the stick, breaks it in half. This was very successful because the crowd ate up everything that Nia was doing. It was the best thing she's done since the Ronda match, and another successful segment, I thought.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting that Nia was just, in the Ronda thing, like, Nia was clearly a heel for like a week or two, and it was very clear they didn't want her to be a heel, so they like completely dialed back on it at the end, because I guess for whatever reason, they feel that, that there's some, I think that whatever it is, they feel that she needs to be a babyface, and here, because still in the end, I still think that the big Ronda match is still with Nia Jax, even though they did it at the house shows. I think that that she should beat Alexa Bliss, and then she should have the program with Nia Jax. I mean, that's how I think it should be, just because of the size thing and everything like that. No Ronda on the show, but one hell of a video game commercial with Ronda.
That's right.
Did you see that?
Yeah, getting the jacket, and they announced her for WWE 2K19, a downloadable character.
They had it was Roddy Piper. I don't know where they got the tape of whatever, or of Roddy Piper giving her like a pep talk, and she's going like, "I'll make you proud." It was a really touching thing. They did a great commercial there. That was later in the show.
So Nia did a promo, vowed to break Alexa. She's going to snap her in half like she did to the kendo stick, and she will not forget everything Alexa has done to her. She's going to pay her back inch by crushing inch. Also a good promo by Nia.
Yeah, it was good, yeah.
We had a Braun Kevin recap, and then Angle's backstage. Kevin shows up. He's in his street clothes. He's got his suitcase. He says, "I'm a pro. I'm here for work. I know you'd love to fire me, but you can't. I've got connections. I should file a complaint with HR for everything you've done, but I'm not going to. I have a doctor's note here saying that I'm not cleared to wrestle, but I am here, and I'm going to hang out tonight where I'm safest, right here in your office. I'll be here all night long."
So there were a bunch of segments all night with Owens in the office. What I would say, Kevin Owens was great, but some of the stuff about trying to do the stuff where he smells bad and those jokes, I thought those were really forced and juvenile, and it's total. I mean, I know the writers writing
comedy.
For Vince. Yeah. You're right. You write it so Vince gets off on it because Vince loves that kind of stuff, fecal humor or whatever it's called. But it just feels like so outdated today, and it's not. Again, I don't think it's funny. It's not funny. But whatever. But they did a whole bunch of that.
We finally got the Mojo No Way Jose match after like 4 weeks. And after all that, Mojo didn't even squash the guy. They had a back-and-forth competitive match, which Mojo did win. And Alabama Slam finish. Yep. I mean, if I wanted to get Mojo over, I would have just had him squash this guy, but that's not how they do things, so.
He won. It's okay.
We had more with Sasha and Bayley.
I'm wondering what they're going to do with Mojo from here, because it's like he's at the stage where they either got to do it, or they're you know what I mean. They either if they're going to do something with him, they really need to pull a trigger on him. I mean, and I think that, look, if they can pull a trigger on Corbin, Mojo's a better promo than Corbin. Mojo's a better athlete than Corbin. He's not as tall, but I think that I'd like to see them at least give him a fair shake. I mean, if he doesn't make it, he may not make it, but if he doesn't make it, he doesn't make it. But this is the time to do it. They've kind of, they've done nothing with him for a long, long time.
We have more with Sasha and Bayley. They got a new therapist this week. There's exactly one segment, and it consists of Bayley saying that Sasha stabbed her in the back over and over. She's tired of being screwed and tired of thinking Sasha's ever going to change. They cut away. We never saw him again. They announced that next week they will have to give their report to Kurt Angle, whatever that means.
I don't know, but the key to this is that we've got a pay-per-view on Sunday, and if they were going to announce the match, tonight was the night they would.
I'm telling you, they're saving it for SummerSlam.
I guess. I hope so, but it's like the timing. I guess you could keep them off this. This card's got enough matches. You probably don't need it, but I just feel like it's just time. We've been waiting for so long. Just do the frickin' match, or start the feud. I guess we've started the feud, but it's this therapist stuff. Put it this way: them sitting there in the therapist office and all that wasn't making me want to see them wrestle, and then it wasn't make me see watching the feud. I think that as far as the feud goes, I think it's kind of sucking.
Yeah. Jinder met with Seth. He says, maybe Jinder's right. I'd like your help. So Jinder starts to chant. Seth walks off on him. Comes out for a promo.
So Jinder's doing Life is Beautiful, Inner Peace. It's kind of a weird gimmick for a heel. I don't know that you get like a lot of heat doing that. They're trying to change him, but I don't know. I mean, it's different, but it feels like second match heel. Although I guess that's what he is now, right?
That's what he's been. So Seth comes out, he's super over, cuts a promo at the Iron Man match, puts over Dolph, says he's looking forward to proving himself against the absolute best, but he is concerned about Ziggler bringing Drew to the party. The two of them come out, cut a promo. Dolph says Seth is still the man, one of the greatest wrestlers ever, but he's no Dolph Ziggler. He mentions that he may win 5-0, 10-0, 100-0 in the Iron Man match. Seth makes fun of him. Dolph tries to come back, botches a line. The crowd's all over the guy. He says Seth he's not going to win the title doing CrossFit. You win the title by racking up wins. I racked up so many victories at Kent State that I left the most winningest wrestler ever with 121 victories. And Seth's comeback is to ask, he didn't know, he says, that Drew graduated from Kent State. And
well, he said how many of them, so Drew helped you win 121 times.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, it's Drew. I didn't know that Drew went to Kent State. I actually thought that was kind of a cute line.
Starts trying to stir dissension, and then the big line. He actually insinuates that Drew McIntyre is a sheep fucker. And Drew flips out, runs down to the ring, says he's had enough, he wants Seth tonight. Seth accepts, mocks him with sheep noises, and then runs for his life. I guess you got to do what you have to do to get heat on this show.
Did that get heat?
I don't know. I couldn't believe my ears, but it's WWE. We had Matt Hardy versus...
That was some of that comedy that doesn't work.
Matt Hardy, Bo Dallas. The B team did their Hardy Bray spoof before the match. Bray and Matt appear in the ring. We end up having kind of a long match. Actually went through a commercial break. Teased a suplex from the inside to the outside. Axel tried to interfere. Bray wiped him out. And then Bo dragged Matt onto the ropes, gave him a draping neckbreaker for the pin. So still undefeated. And after the match, the lights went out. Bray and Matt were outside the ring, totally fine. Hit the ring, attacked both heels. Left them laying. Just a basic segment leading to the tag title match at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, just normal stuff. It feels like it feels like the Raw tag team titles are very preliminary tag team titles right now.
Well, they are. Lashley promo says, you know what? I respect everybody who gets in the ring with me, including, he says, Sami Zayn. But
why would he respect Sami Zayn after all Sami Zayn did, but have no respect for Roman Reigns?
Well, he said he didn't like anything about him. He's sick of him bringing up what happened 10 years ago. He does like that he's willing to fight him, so he knows he's going to show up on Sunday.
We should respect him.
Says when he walks in to fight him, he's not going to walk out. It adds, believe that. And he actually got some boos from the crowd, so very effective promo.
That line was cool, especially the way he delivered it. I thought that was kind of neat.
We had Tyler Breeze giving Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan Fashion Police shirts. I guess they're on clearance now that Fandango's hurt, and they tear them up. This leads to a Liv Morgan Ember Moon match, but we had an Alexa promo first for the pay-per-view.
Well, they had the Ronda Rousey Hall of Fame segment first.
Yep. And then Alexa says, I'm going to be saving the rest of this beating for Sunday. I'm thrilled that Ron is going to be there to witness me ending Nia's career. I will be known after Sunday as the Extreme Women's Champion.
Extreme Raw Women's Champion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we had Ember Moon, Liv Morgan. Actually had a pretty good match. Ember made her comeback. Sarah jumped up on the apron. Liv tried a cradle, but Ember reversed it into a cradle of her own for the pin. Liv has improved a lot since coming up to the main roster. Thought this was a perfectly fine match.
Yeah. I mean, it was okay. Didn't do anything for me. It was just there.
Had a Finn promo about his match with Baron Corbin. Rude walked up, just interrupted his interview, talking about how great they both look. Says Corbin can say whatever he wants, but when it comes time to perform in the ring, there's nobody better than Finn. And vows that they will be glorious.
So Rude said that they are both handsome, they both have good heads of hair, and they both have good abs.
Yes.
Yes. So then he showed his abs, and, they're going to be a tag team later in the show.
Kurt was with Kevin Owens. Ziggler and Drew showed up. Kurt says, Drew, if you lose tonight, you're banned from ringside at Extreme Rules. And Dolph is all pissed off. Kevin piles on, and Drew says, it's fine. Make Seth's climb easier. I guarantee he's not making it through this mountain tonight. It's a good promo. This guy's awesome.
Yeah. So Kevin Owens was spraying air freshener in the office, and Kurt was acting like Owens was smelling because of that spot that they did last week from a week. So that was like the Vince McMahon, Kurt said that you smell because of the porta potty thing. So anyway, that was the Vince McMahon humor we talked about earlier.
Drifter comes out to sing his song. Constable Corbin comes out. They sang Itsy Bitsy Balor. And that led to Finn and Rude versus the Drifter and Corbin. Usual long double heat tag match. Finally, Rude makes the hot tag, comes off the top. Corbin chokeslams him onto the knee. Balor makes the save. Tons of near falls here. And finally, Finn hit a kick on Corbin. Tossed him inside, went for the double foot stomp. Corbin cut him off. Rude ran Corbin to the post. And then Rude went for the DDT, but Drifter hit the ring. Rude took him out, ran into the end of days. And Corbin pins Bobby Roode. The same Bobby Roode that's coming off losing to Mojo Rawley at Madison Square Garden.
On the run, it was actually Bobby Roode won 2 out of the 3 from Mojo Rawley. He lost the Garden, but he won the other 2. So it was just even Steven booking.
On a house show?
Yeah.
What's the point of that? Who cares?
I don't know. I think they were just maybe testing. Who knows? Who knows what they were doing? They're just doing something to do something.
We had Kurt with Kevin Owens. Braun Strowman shows up. Kurt says, don't worry, you're not fighting tonight, but you will be fighting on Sunday. And since you keep running from him, I am putting the two of you in a cage match. And Braun then says, Kevin, you reek of fear. And he sprays him with air freshener. So let me ask this question. Kevin Owens has been running from Braun Strowman.
So you put them in a match where the goal is to run.
Is that what they're going to do? Are they actually going to do Escape the Cage for this feud?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Oh, my God. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, you had a cage with a roof on it or something like that where the guy can't get out. That makes sense. But a guy keeps fleeing, and so you're going to book him in a match where the whole point of it is to flee?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, that's what they're doing.
Wow.
I think that they're going with the idea that in a cage you can't run away, even though we've seen a million cage matches, and they're never conclusive like they used to be. So it's like the whole idea, I don't know. But, they're just going to do a cage match on the show.
I had the Ronda Rousey 2K commercial here. And then Bayley and Sasha have to report back to Kurt next week. Roman Reigns does a promo. Says, listen, I had no respect for Bobby until I saw the fire in his eyes tonight. He cannot beat me on Sunday. I'm the big dog. And Bobby doesn't have the fight in him that I do. I'm going to beat him and move on to better things.
That was so time to mention Brock Lesnar, and that was the thing. It's like they never brought up anything at all. The name was never mentioned once. It was interesting.
We had Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre main event. Seth going for a long match in the final hour again. And McIntyre looked great in this match. Seth always looks great. McIntyre worked him over, gut-wrench suplex on the apron, tossed him 3/4 of the way across the ring after the break. Tons of near falls at the end. There was a huge deadlift sit-out powerbomb by Drew. Seth went for the double foot stomp, but Drew sat up from the Tree of Woe, tossed him with a suplex. Rollins with a Falcon Arrow. McIntyre goes for the middle rope Emerald Frozen, but Seth escapes. It's a buckle bomb and a super kick, goes up for a high cross. And finally, Dolph tries to hit the ring. Seth gives him a curb stomp, but then turns around into a Claymore kick for the pin. Drew, a total easy main eventer here on the show tonight. And hopefully, whoever needs to see this was paying attention because he was awesome. And so, storyline is Drew can be at the ringside on Sunday.
Yeah, it didn't have as much heat as I expected it would have. I thought the wrestling was, I knew the wrestling would be good with those two guys. But I was looking at, was the crowd super hot? Because they worked a match that the crowd could have been super hot for, but they really weren't. I'm not sure what was missing. It may have just been, a long night and.
Well, the one thing I've noticed is when you have a Raw where the fans are kind of so into it, and then something big happens at the end, it feels like they have energy to go crazy. But this was like a really, really good crowd. Like, they were going nuts in the opening segment for Roman and Bobby Lashley. They were hot for a lot of stuff early, and it's hard to stay that hot for 3 straight hours.
Well, it is, I think, when you do lots of interviews, because we went, it's like I've been to shows that go 4 and 5 hours, where the crowd stays hot, but you don't have those long breaks between matches and the long interviews to take you down. So yeah, for a Raw show, 3 hours is a long time, and it is hard to keep the crowd hot. And it wasn't like there was anything negative about the match. I thought that both guys were really good. Drew's as far as wrestling goes, for a big guy, he's very. He's very, very good. And he can talk. Like I always say, he ticks all the boxes, but the key box to tick is to get the people going crazy. And I've seen him do that in other places, so I know he can do it. But it didn't happen here.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're out of time here for today, but we're going to be back on Wednesday. We should have a lot of time for Mailbag. The New Observer, I believe, kind of has to be out on Wednesday because you're leaving Thursday. I
gotta go somewhere on Thursday. So whatever it's going to be it's going to be. But yeah, there's stuff going on and everything. It's a real tough week for me for non-wrestling reasons, but just time consumption is it's going to be a tough week. This is going to be a tough week. Next week's going to be a tough week, just because I'm going with my son to Los Angeles for 2 days, Thursday and Friday, and then we got UFC on Saturday and G1 starting on Saturday.
That's right.
Yeah. This is interesting because, nobody is ready for I shouldn't say that, but nobody's ready for G1 because when the New Japan guys were there, normally you get a couple weeks off before G1. So when I was talking to the different guys from New Japan over the weekend, and, every discussion is G1 starts in a week. And every one of them is like, oh yeah, It's like it doesn't feel like G1 is starting in a week, but it is. I think it's because, again, usually you get those like a break, and instead they had the Daytona show, they had the 2 England shows, then the next week they have the Cow Palace show. It's like there's no break. You usually get a couple weeks where you're getting to do your everyone trains a certain way to get into G1 shape. Whatever kind of shape you think you need, because it's such it's the toughest thing in wrestling is that G1 schedule, because it's so many hard singles matches, and everyone's going to get bruised and bumped, and you want to be, and you got to have your cardio at a certain level. And Omega really described it, but when he was on the show here a couple weeks ago about the whole thing, but it's like they're on the road constantly, so nobody's been home doing those daily workouts to like you usually do in G1. And you also got it's also going to be, the G1's also going to be interesting because you got these Jay White, Juice was in last year, but he's a much bigger star this year. And then Adam Page and the guys that are like this is kind of like their year to make themselves stars by having these great matches. Plus, you've got the incumbents, the Kota Ibushi, Kenny Omega, Okada, Tanahashi, guys that Ishii, that you just expect them to have these fantastic matches, all the time. So, anyway, starts on Saturday, and we got a month of that.
All right, with that, we're out of here, everybody. We'll talk to you again after a while.